Mark, how are you? Thank you for bringing me to the Dome in Edinburgh.
I mean, Gary, I'm really good. I mean, what a place. Look at that background. What's not to love about the Dome in Edinburgh?
My goodness, I nearly feel like I'm underdressed and I really should be a grown up on this call. Look at that.
Well, I mean, grown up is an interesting and overused phrase. So I do think, though, I mean, the Dome, when you ask me what's my favourite pub, I mean, it's an interesting choice. But the Dome is something that goes back quite a few years for me, and I've been up and taken family and friends since. And there's not one person that says it's not an amazing place, Gary. I mean, it used to be the RBS trading floor going back many moons. But as you can see, they've really gone understated with the decor and the lighting in there, haven't they?
It's a real ambience the minute you walk in, and I guess it's a sign of the times because you travel the world as I do a bit myself, and you go into a lot of restaurants and hotels, and the world is becoming quite the same. Good hotels, good restaurants. It's you rock into a place like this that's unique. Look at the finishing on the roof and even the finish on the flowers and the whole lot. You feel like you have to enjoy yourself.
Oh, even if the pint is woeful, Gary, you've got to smile in this place. I mean, the best time to visit, anybody who's listening, best time to visit is leading up to Christmas when they've got a huge Christmas tree going right up the centre where you can see just behind you there. So, yeah, there's my little plug for Edinburgh at this point.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we're there. Couple of stools. I hope there's a couple of stools there somewhere. We're sitting there having a chat. The big doors open, and there's somebody there standing, dead or alive. One person. Who would you love to call over and have a beer with?
Well, this is going to sound a little bit odd for a lot of people listening, but the one person I'd really love to have a beer with, and I suspect it wouldn't be one, is George Best. So my, I've got a recollection of him from old videotape, old footage. He's a legend at Manchester United. It's my football club, but he did so much for that football club, amongst other players as well. But the real thing I liked about him was his absolute ability to play like he did, but also have a good time. And maybe that was his downfall in the end. But I'd just love to have just had a few hours with him, just chatting through big nights, football, big players, the manager at the time, Sir Matt Busby, the whole thing, and the rebuild from obviously Munich onwards. I'd just love to have had a few hours with him. It would have been intriguing, interesting. I might have left him at midnight because nothing good happens after midnight. That's my phrase these days. Might have been slightly different in my 20s and 30s, but yeah, I'd love to have had a few pints with him. That would have been amazing.
We look back at other times and we say, the players weren't as fit, and maybe the players weren't this, that, and the other. But what I often talk to my own kids and others that watch is look at the pitches. Look at the pitches that they played on, and particularly of the ilk of Dennis Law, of George Best, Pele, of players who needed tight ball control. To look at the pitches, which they were potato fields.
Well, I mean, let's be absolutely right. The rugby lads today wouldn't play on that same level of pitch that they were playing on in the 60s and early 70s, right? So it's it is phenomenal. And I have to say, my dad was. I mean, this is quite. I mean, the irony of this. Who is a Tottenham fan? Lived in East London, grew up in East London.
A lot of pain. A lot of pain.
He went to the European Cup final and saw George Best that night when he was at his absolute prime. He got a programme, and of course, well, at that time, he didn't know that I was going to come into his life, and he didn't know I was going to be a Manchester United fan. But so I said with it, when we were chatting, and this was a few years ago, we sat down chatting, and he said, yeah, I was there that night. Oh, brilliant. Did you get a programme? Yeah. Fantastic. Where is it? Oh, I don't know. I threw it somewhere on the way home. I was just in bits. I thought, oh, no. I don't believe this, but and he was lucky enough to go and see him. So so he'd be the person I'd want to go see. I think the really interesting bit for me would be his just his stories, Gary? I mean, he must have a million stories. I think, like sport of that era, no matter what sport you were playing, it was played with a different kind of ethos. I have to say, though, I think rugby is still in that kind of same mould today. So I saw the Barbarians game and all the guys in the one change room afterwards.
Yeah.
Battered 12 barrels out of each other, and they were sharing a beer and a few stories. So let's hope that continues for a long, long time in rugby, but it seems to have disappeared in football.
What we'll do, and we'll make a promise to each other. I'll get you to a hurling match here in Ireland, which is
amazing.
Amateur sport, 80,000 people, and you talk about people being able to do damage with each other. These guys have a stick, and there are less injuries in a hurling match than there are in an average soccer match. Now, I'm not.
Bonkers.
It's bonkers, right? There's a great saying, isn't there, by an Irish journalist that he watched a rugby match and a soccer match one after another, right? And he said, I watched the soccer match, which is 26 guys running around a pitch for 90 odd minutes, pretending they're injured. And then I watched a rugby match for 82 minutes for 36 guys running around the pitch, pretending they're not injured. So
you got it.
So something has to give. So your number comes up. Don't know if there's a television there, but the lottery number comes up, and you got your 6 numbers, and it's £1 million. I have to get it right now. £1 million. What would you love to do with that £1 million?
Well, I think I tell you the one thing I've learned over the past few years, Gary, is that being kind and being neighbourly, especially during that, let's be right, one of the most awful periods of our lifetime, which was COVID, I think it makes a big difference to people. And if you can offer a small nugget of kindness to people, I really think it makes a big difference, not just to the person you're trying to be kind to or trying to be kind to, but also it should make you feel good that you're giving something. So I think about that £1 million and I think, well, what could we do with that? I think I'd like to educate folk and bring a sense of neighbourhood back to neighbourhoods, because I think we've lost it a little bit. I'll give you an example. And, even we moved into a little close and there were 5 houses, and not one of the neighbours had spoken to each other until we moved in. We had a little barbecue, and sure enough, over a period of time, you foster a relationship that is quite astounding. And one of our neighbours, they turned 90 in December. I know this because he tells me frequently. They used to be world roller skating champions, met the Queen. How cool is that? How cool is that?
That's bizarre, man.
Well, and it was at our first barbecue, and I remember it so well. And people were around, we were chatting, a few wines, beers, whatever. And he mentioned it, and of course, then a few of us were kind of, well, I need to see photo evidence. Brian, are you going to go? And so off he went. He got his little photo album. He came back. He showed us all of it. But this is what you could find out from people just by being a little bit neighbourly. So what would I spend £1 million on? I'd spend £1 million on a PR campaign to get people, just go find out what your neighbour's up to and who they are and what they do, because you just don't know who's beside you. And actually, when you do create a bit of a bond, you don't have to be in each other's pockets, Gary. That's not what I'm saying, but just have a quick look out. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes. So for example, we started a little veg plot during lockdown, and we were feeding the neighbours with spring onions forever. I mean, they're probably too polite to say stop doing it, but but they probably hate spring onions. I don't know. And we bought a pizza oven.
Yeah. Look what we're having tonight again.
Exactly that. So I'd spend £1 million on a bit of a PR program, bringing people together. And I think that's one thing. If you think about some of the topics in my industry as an example, one of the things we're trying to do is to help people see that comradeship, togetherness, kindness, that's the glue of mankind, really. And I think we've missed it a little bit. This remote working thing. Don't get me wrong, it works in some instances, but I think we're missing a trick. So that's what I'd spend £1 million on, Gary.
And isn't it really interesting what you're saying is in the industry that you're in, you're building digital infrastructure globally and you're connecting people and you're solving so many problems. But, you know, we got to be mindful that during times of change, all change, we leave stuff behind that we should be mindful of, that we need to bring with us. And you're so absolutely right with trying to find common purpose among all generations. There seems to be at the moment, you're either a under 20 and over 20 and over 60 and over this, that, and the other. And we're all sort of trying to find, well, I can't talk to that person. Find something that's common. And one of the things that you guys, I know, because you support it greatly, is we've a thing called Orchards in the Community with Host in Ireland. And we've sent out, 3,000 orchards all over Ireland, to all age groups, the whole lot. And it's just incredible to have something of common purpose. That we're not talking about your age. We're not talking about your social standing. We're actually all trying to plant an orchard that early flowers to help the bees. And that's the bit, isn't it? That's the bit, the glue. And in your case, with your 5 people, it was just getting people together that happened to be in a small cluster of houses to find common purpose, which was, well, we're here. We're going to be here for a while. We need to know each other. Interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, absolutely, Garry. And you know, the easiest thing, of course, is not easy, because you know, I've looked in other areas. We've lived in other areas, and it's been pretty difficult. You try, it's a bit difficult, so you kind of ease off a little bit. Let's be right. I don't need any more contacts in my life. I'm fine with that. I've got enough, to be fair. However, having your neighbour look out for you, having your neighbour, you look out for them. And actually, you're right on the age thing as well. It's just no one needs an excuse. Find a reason why to do it, not a reason why not to do it. So we would, you know, like I say, we spring onions a lot. We started to make pizzas for the neighbours. I went to the cash and carry, got a little cardboard box straight out of our pizza oven. We'd send them around our neighbours. Honestly, when the smoke started coming out of it, I think they all rushed out into the garden and sat there with a deck chair, ready for it. You know, so.
I can see a reality TV show coming up with Life with Mark. You are that guy, right? You are that guy, and suddenly it becomes a movement. You know,
there you go.
A spring onion movement. This will be. You'll be defined and known as the spring onion man.
I mean, I don't know where we can really take that. I'll probably get onto the PR agency immediately and see what we can wrap around that.
Do you know what? It's as good a time as any to say thank you. And it's as good a time as any before we deteriorate into nonsense completely. Mark, thanks a million for bringing me to an amazing looking place, sharing a couple of little anecdotes that are really good and they're heartwarming as well. So thanks, Mark. Have a great day, and thanks for joining me.
Garry, been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on. Appreciate it.